And let's get back to that overnight military operation by U.S. forces in Syria that succeeded in taking out Islamic State's current leader during a raid in northwest Syria. Now, one man with extensive military experience in that part of the world and against ISIS is Major General Danapittard. He spent decades in the U.S. Army, becoming one of the few African Americans to rise to the level of Major General. He served as the former U.S. ground commander in Iraq, and he co-authored the book Hunting the Caliphate, America's War on ISIS and the Dawn of the Strike Cell. And he joins us now from the U.S. General Pittard, thank you for joining us. First of all, I just want to get your reaction to this operation in Syria, which certainly must have been extremely complex and dangerous for the soldiers participating in to carry out successfully.
Absolutely. First of all, thank you for having me. I love your New York accent. The strike and the raid was certainly very complex, not dissimilar to what we saw in the raid to kill Osama bin Laden that was in Pakistan. It takes a lot of intelligence. It's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, putting indicators, putting pieces together, the overall puzzle to find this leadership. And then the rehearsals that must take place to be ready for it. Rehearsals very quickly with very elite forces like SEAL Team 6 and or Delta Force, the aircraft involved, all of it very, very complex, very difficult. But the raid was successful. The target was in fact neutralized. They probably would have wanted to have him alive for intelligence value, but he blew himself up and members of his family apparently at the same time. And then all the troops that were part of it got out safely.
Right. Now, General, you literally wrote the book on ISIS and the caliphate. Of course, that sort of land area that Islamic State controlled no longer exists as an entity. But it does seem that Islamic State has somehow had some kind of resurgence. Recently, we saw that raid on that prison there in Syria, which was quite a complex operation. How do you assess the state of ISIS at this stage?
Sure. ISIS as a state or as a caliphate has been destroyed. But in some ways, it could be even more dangerous as this terrorist organization, which in the past was very well funded. It's less funded now, where there is not one place that you can attack where they are. And they're growing like a weed in ungoverned spaces of failed states. And that's a problem. So by killing the current ISIS leader, that's helpful, but ISIS and ISIS ideology still exists and must be defeated. But it's defeated also by good governance on the ground by different states, whether it's Syria, whether it's Iraq and others. It's making sure that they treat people fairly, whether Sunni Muslims, because that's where ISIS has been allowed to grow in areas where there's discontent.
And General, the Biden administration came into office with the stated intention of reducing the U.S. military presence in the Mideast, at least boots on the ground. But it does seem in the last couple of months, maybe a recalibration of that policy. We've seen this operation. We're seeing a boosted U.S. military presence now in the Persian Gulf. Do you get a sense that there is this shift in policy there by the White House?
I do, to an extent. I mean, there's a reality on the ground is that in order to ensure the region is stable, America must remain engaged. When President Biden, ran for office in 2020, he ran on getting America out of Afghanistan. Okay, that's a decent goal, but it didn't include a strategic view of how do you want the region to be. And I think that they've done, as an administration, an assessment that in fact, to have the region to be as stable as possible, America must be engaged with its allies, like Israel, Saudi Arabia, and others in the region to keep it stable. So I think you're seeing a recalibration.
Right. Now, of course, you mentioned Afghanistan, which was much criticized, the withdrawal from there. President Biden, in his comments today, really just focused on this operation and the situation with ISIS in this region. But is it possible? Could you see that this operation has some relevance, sending some larger message about American power at a time when it's being tested?
Sure. I mean, we want to ensure that this region, the Middle East and Southwest Asia, are in fact stable. But there are other global concerns. What's happening in Ukraine with Russia, what's happening with China and increased threats on Taiwan and other areas. So, I mean, there is pressure on the resources that America has as far as a military on where to put, its emphasis and efforts.
Right. Do you expect more action within Syria? We know Islamic State is still, like I said, active there. Would you like to see more U.S. action in Syria?
I would like to see more action from nations in the area, whether it's Turkey, whether it's Syria, whether it's Iraq, with U.S. support against ISIS. That's what I'd really like to see, as opposed to boots on the ground from the U.S.
All right.
And we showed that. We showed that in 2014, that could be done without boots on the ground, a whole lot of boots on the ground, by using enablers like air support, intelligence, and special ops.
All right. Retired Major General Danapittard, thank you for joining us on i24 News.
Thank you, sir.